Savage in a suit, Wall Street bodybuilder, in my personal opinion, social media's most freaking energetic finance guy, and someone who is unapologetically himself. You had some issues with TRT.
It was probably one of the worst things I've ever experienced. I couldn't shower without immense pain. There were some videos that were made about me that I didn't feel so nice about after the whole experience. And, you know, big names like Greg Doucette or Derek from More Plates, More Dates made review videos on the video I ultimately made.
Was there ever a time where there was fear in the back of your head that maybe colleagues or associates are looking at you and saying, what is this guy doing? Did you ever think it was going to hurt you?
Anthony, I almost lost my job.
You did.
I was whistleblowed. People take a personal offense to you being yourself.
What motivates you?
What motivates me?
Savage in a suit, Wall Street bodybuilder. I would say, in my personal opinion, social media's most freaking energetic finance guy, and someone who is unapologetically himself, which is probably the most ultimate compliment I can give someone, and something I have a lot of respect for, Zan. So thank you so much for coming on, and welcome to Gross Potential.
Hell yeah, Anthony. I love that introduction. I got chills, man. I love this stuff. This stuff's great.
I don't know if you're ready for this first question. A lot of guests aren't, but are you ready for it?
Oh, God, I don't know. Should I write notes? Maybe. Let's do it.
What TV, book, or movie character do you think best resembles you, and why?
Wow. Am I Harvey Specter? I really hope. That would be sweet.
Harvey Specter, that's from Suits, right?
Yeah. I have a binging addiction to Suits. Like, if people ask me, you know, what are you watching right now? I'm watching Suits on repeat because it's the last thing that I watch, and then I get about 10 minutes of it before I pass out, and I have to rewatch every episode like 6 times before I get through it. I'm on season 7.
So I've never watched Suits before, but I've seen clips of Harvey Specter. Why do you say Harvey Specter?
I always get compared to Harvey Specter just because I'm wearing the suit, and I think it's just like the wording. If I could be as coy and I guess have this ominous feeling about myself as he does, then maybe that would be a lot more fitting. Okay. I don't know who I would be best. I don't know. Maybe like a Ryan Reynolds type of guy. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's a lot more my character. Yeah. Where like I'm serious in one breath, and then I'm like making a half not okay joke on the other end. So maybe you know, maybe call me one of Ryan Reynolds' characters. But I don't know. It's a great question.
Ryan Reynolds is hilarious, and he's crushing it. I think it's Mint Mobile, and it's kind of taking off and going all over the place. But anyway, okay. So we got a little bit of Harvey Specter, we got a little bit of Ryan Reynolds, and how would you describe at the current moment, like, what your mission is that you're striving for?
Yeah, that's there's multiplicity to that, because I have a lot of different elements of my life that are going on all at once, which is a cocktail that's a lot of fun to drink. You know, obviously in my normal job function, I'm trying to grow my personal brand for my personal business, to drive it as a conduit, because I work on one of the strongest teams at my company and have been groomed into a situation where I have the ability and the flexibility to grow something that's really mine, and take something over in the next decade that's got foundations, got longevity. But really, I think my impact right now is to allow people to see them for themselves and to grow into this limitless potential that they truly don't even fathom quite yet, but they have under their skin, right? Which I think where Savage in a Suit came from is that we all put on a suit every day, and we try to live this corporate lifestyle, and we emulate each other, but we end up running this rat race rather than trying to be different, rather than trying to be ourselves and be authentic to who we are and live this limitless potential that we've all got, but we sometimes just forget because we get into a pattern. And so I think I tried to show people to break the pattern and lead people into a situation where there are tools to get there. There are tools to achieve the career development that you want and to get into positions that others have, but don't think so myopically about it, right? You have the tools. There's way too much to leverage these days, but build something for yourself. Like, try to carve it out your own way, in a way.
So when you say like limitless potential, the first thing that came to mind was the topic of like self-belief. And when I say that, first of all, if you've never read the book Psycho Cybernetics, you have to read that book. It'll change everything about how you perceive yourself. But as a kid, where I grew up being an athlete and I loved baseball. And I always wanted to be a professional baseball player, but there was always that little voice in the back of my head saying, it's impossible. There's no way you can do it. You're too small. You can never hit a 96-mile-an-hour fastball. Impossible. And it wasn't until I actually read that book, Psycho-Cybernetics, where it's changed my whole perception of how I viewed myself. And that changed my area of possibility. So that's when I started making content. And I kept telling myself, like, this is going to be possible. I can actually do this someday. I don't care how long it takes. It's possible. Is that what you mean? You're trying to help people, young kids, potential savages in suits, understand and develop self-belief, because maybe that's something that you didn't have as a kid. Am I right with that, or where are we headed?
No, you're dead on. You're dead on. Look, I grew up with a very supportive family, but I was certainly not the most well-tooled athlete growing up. I certainly was the most distracted student. I struggled to align myself into the perfect pattern, right? And so I think I struggled being anything other than average in a lot of different ways in my life. And as you know, obviously as a kid, you live with insecurities, right? Like you develop patterns. And I don't develop the pattern of habit eating. I was just constantly eating as comfort, for fun. I love food. I'm always a foodie. You know a restaurant in New Jersey, I'm finding it. I'm gonna tell you all about it. I'm gonna explore the whole menu. And I think I struggled with weight when I was a kid. I moved to Hawaii for 2 years when I was a kid, and it was a situational thing for my family. And it ended up being that we moved back to New Jersey just after 2.5 years. And so during those 2.5 years, I didn't play much sports. So not only did I fall behind with my own biomechanics and I would say the ability to play sports at a high level, I also gained a lot of weight because I was still eating like a kid who was active. And so when I came back, I fell in love with football because it was the sport that they endorsed you being an eater, because that usually meant that you were beating people up on the field.
Yeah.
And I think I gained some confidence in that there was an environment I could foster the things that I liked. But there was always something missing. And I think I definitely struggled as an athlete going through high school, where I was actually pretty decent at football. I was actually a very good long snapper, and I would say I was a halfway decent defensive player and offensive player. Um, and my dad would kill me if he heard me call myself halfway decent, but that's truly how I view myself. And I was a Division III football player. For every other sport, I was not nearly as good as football. And I was a Division I long snapper in a D3 body, and I was a D3 football player in a D3 body. And so I ended up playing college football, and that's where I found a really good group of friends, a good community. And I went to a small school in South. It's called Salve Regina. It's in Newport, Rhode Island. If you haven't heard of it, you've heard of Newport, Rhode Island. It's one of the most gorgeous places on the planet, especially in New England. I got to play football for 4 years there. And I think if you asked me as a kid, I probably would have said that like college football was not within arm's reach of me. And then I ended up doing it, and I played pretty well. I wasn't like didn't have a lot of stats. I wasn't like the highest tackler or somebody with leading sacks, but I played every single game. I didn't miss one game. I pulled a wisdom tooth out of my mouth so that I didn't miss any game. I straight up just wanted to play as much football as possible. But I think I really struggled with my own self-doubt. I struggled to live life without hesitation. I think I hesitated a lot growing up just because of my own insecurities.
And okay, so I play college baseball too at the D3 level. So we both play college sports. I I think the one thing nobody ever expects is, like, you're told your whole life as an athlete, you need to eat, you need to eat, you need to eat more because you need to gain weight and you need to perform better. So I was like, as a kid, I couldn't eat for shit. But like that's always in my head of like, dude, I need to keep eating because I need to put on muscle. And then boom, you stop playing sports. And
Yep.
guess you just want to keep eating. And you just gain weight, bro. It's like the most difficult thing. And like I still struggle with it all the time. Like food is the comfort. And it sometimes it does lead to like the binge eating stuff. And it screws with everything because physique leads to a lot of confidence, but when that's not there, it just kind of screws you over.
Without a doubt. And I think, being insecure about your body and being insecure about how you look, like, starts to really bleed into everything else that you do. And trying to create a healthy relationship with food is really hard. And then creating systems to keep yourself in shape is also difficult. But there's certainly processes that allow other people to do it. And so you just have to read the manual, right? Figure out how other people are able to stay in shape and rewire the way you think about your brain, how you treat yourself, right? Because it really is about self-respect from then on forward, right? It's about how you respect your body, how you figure out how to create discipline in your life, and that's congruent across all platforms in your life, all vehicles that you drive.
Well, and so right now, I know you do bodybuilding, and you just finished a show recently, right?
Yep.
How
Yep.
well, so first of all, how did that go?
Amazing, amazing. I competed for the first time 2 years ago when I first got into bodybuilding, and I didn't do nearly as well. And this past time, I won my class in classic physique. Um, yeah, so I was astounded, and even better, I was surrounded by 30 people who loved me, who showed up on that day to watch me be in the show. And it was one of those like eureka moments. It was one of those like profound moments of feeling like you accomplished something. And you know how it is when you're an athlete; it's really hard to find other ways to stimulate that feeling of accomplishment and like championship type of feeling. And winning that show was everything I needed to keep pushing forward. It was fueling my fire, wind in my sails.
So I watched one of your YouTube videos, and you had a coach. And so in this YouTube video, I think you're a day out before the show, and it's like late at night, and you're like, you keep sending photos of your physique, and then you keep getting more input from your coach, and you're like, I'm I think I'm down 3 pounds between last time I sent it, whatever it is. But it's 10:30 at night, and your coach says, go get a burger and fries, like the day before your show. And I'm thinking, why the hell would a bodybuilder try to eat burger and fries the day before a show? Like, wouldn't that make you be, but wouldn't you want to eat as little food as possible? I don't understand that. Can you just like walk me through what was going on there?
There are a lot of intricacies to bodybuilding. It is an art, not a science,
Yeah.
although there's plenty of science incorporated. The body, right before a show, if you're getting into the week prior to the show, which we would call peak week, should be lean enough to where every bit of food that you consume and every bit of water and sodium should have a reaction, right? And so if you are depleted, which is when the body basically has limited glycogen and limited energy storages, it's kind of like an empty balloon where, or even better yet, a tire, right? And so if the tire is deflated, you need to fill it up with air. But that air is not just O2, it's got a ton of other components to it. And that's carbohydrates, that's fats, that's sodium, and water. And so as you're adding that in, you need to understand which ones are processing in the body the right way. And I've tried to get ready for a show where I was very lean before the show and eating 500-600 grams of carbs, which sounds like a lot for somebody who tracks their macros, but my body was burning right through it. And so if you go have a very low fat, high carb meal and your metabolism is ripping and your body's already depleted, you need some fats in there to make them stick, basically to glue them down to the digestive tract so that the body can utilize them. And so the way it started to work for me is that if we had we call it a dirtier refeed meal, the fats within the meal would actually help me to fill out where the muscle would push against the skin better, make you look leaner and appear drier and on the leaner side. So, yeah, it's this weird thing in bodybuilding where you're trying to play a balance between fullness, leanness, hardness, and how much water you have in your body. You want to have as little water between the skin and the muscle, and you want to have the muscle pressing up against the skin. And you
Yeah.
got to play with all these different ingredients, and everybody reacts differently to them. Some people only need 100 grams of carbs before a show to fill out. Some people need 300 grams of carbs and 50 to 80 grams of fat. It's a totally different recipe for everybody.
What's something about bodybuilding prep, not the show, we'll get to the show next, but bodybuilding prep that nobody realizes is that difficult? Like, for example, I gave this example on a different podcast. I was watching David Blaine, a YouTube video of David Blaine, and this is when he sat in a casket, a wide open casket. Everyone could see him, and he got buried alive for 7 days. And he was talking about, yeah, everybody knows it's probably difficult because you can't move, you can't do anything, you can't go on your phone. But the most difficult thing that nobody understands was how hard it was for him to pee. because there are a million eyes at him at one point, and he's just got to figure out like how do I pee in front of all these people? Like he couldn't go to the bathroom for multiple days because he's like psyched in his head. So what is that for bodybuilding prep?
The hardest thing is probably the fact that you have to have the meals that you need to eat for the next sometimes 6 to 8 hours with you. Otherwise, you're not eating. And that's the problem. Because if you are tracking your food to the gram and every meal is written out for you, and then you go to the grocery store and then something happens
Yeah.
and you can't get to your next meal, that could throw your whole day off. So it's not that you're so hungry or you're so thirsty all the time or you're so fatigued. There's plenty of supplements that you can take. NAD plus keeps me going every single day without, regardless of how tired I am, how much sleep I got the night before. I have energy and I had it all the way through my prep. But if I get caught without food, oh, that's tough because I have 6 meals a day to eat. And if I now have to lump two of them together because my last meal went 4.5, 5 hours before I got to the next meal, well, dude, that could throw off my digestion, which would throw off my training because I got all of this food in my digestive tract that I'm still trying to break down.
Wow.
Um, and, people think that you're starving yourself for a bodybuilding show. No, you're eating strategically. The macros are all dictated towards how your body's processing food at a certain rate, and you're trying to have fat loss occur at a certain rate. But, you definitely eating enough, right? In most cases, depending on where you are in the prep. But if you have your meal timing thrown off entirely by an hour or two, oh yeah, you're screwed. So leaving the house is almost like a big jump and leap of faith. Where I'm typically, if me and my girlfriend are going somewhere, I'm packing 2, 3 meals, making sure that I have something on deck in case it gets a little long in the day before we get back.
So that's why you were tripping in that one video where I think traffic was bad. And okay, because it's like, why is he freaking out so much? Because you had to push back that thing and then it messed up all the digestion and all of that.
Yeah, so you watched the video where we kind of went through the day out from the show to the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Even more pressure to make sure my timing is correct because we are eating and taking pictures and drinking water on an hour cycle each. So every time I would eat a meal, an hour later I would drink some water, 15 minutes later I would take pictures, send the pictures to my coach. He would give me the next meal for the following hour. And all the while, I have to accomplish whatever was within that hour, whether it was going to check in for the show, whether it was going to get a base coat of tan on, a top coat of tan on, right? So if something throws off a half hour, and now I have to run into a hotel, check in, there's a line. Now I'm getting upstairs. Did I get everything from the car that I needed? Oh no, I forgot this. Run out to the car, come back, take the pictures. I'm already a half hour behind and I'm running late for the last slot of tanning because you're trying to have that tan put on absolutely the last hour you can because it's not fun to live with a fake tan on. A, B, when it's hot out in the middle of the summer, it's even worse because you don't want that tan to drip as much as possible because you want the tan to lay nice. And then you'd like to just get in bed and lay down, but you have to make sure that you either have something to lay in a hotel room that isn't white so you don't ruin everything and add a bunch of charges to your card. And then on top of that, you just don't want to be in the tan, right? The tan's nice when you wash it off. The tan's nice when you're staying on stage.
Yeah.
All other hours, not so fun. So if my timing got thrown off and now my tanning time's off and now my meal time's off and then my digestion's all screwed, you watched the video.
Yeah.
3 hours went by and I dropped 3 pounds. It was just stress.
I know. That's wild. Like that's wild to me. What about the actual show? So now it's show day because I see stuff on TikTok and I watch like what I eat in a day after my bodybuilding show. But usually the first thing that people say is, "Oh my God, I'm so thirsty," and they chug a gallon of water. So actually show day comes about. What is the most challenging thing that nobody really would expect unless they're a bodybuilder?
Yeah, I would say timing for getting peaked for the moment that you're on stage because you're eating food strategically and drinking water strategically and then taking salt strategically to try and create the best look on stage. And you don't want to spill over. The last thing you want to do is have too much water, too much food, and then look not as lean as you woke up that day. but you do want to be full. So you do want to play that game of like, every couple hours, we're going to have, a rice and chicken meal. We're going to have a muffin. We're going to have some honey. And then you're standing backstage getting ready to go. And they always get you up there a little early being like sometimes 20 to 30 minutes. And then you're standing there with no food in your underwear in like a cold hallway, or even worse, a hot hallway.
Yeah.
I've had that before too. And you're just standing there trying to figure out, when do I start like playing with the bands and doing any dumbbell curls or doing push-ups and getting ready. So it's really a timing thing that's an issue. Now the water, certainly an issue. I'm just used to being thirsty. I'm constantly thirsty.
Yeah.
I could drink 2 gallons of water a day and not blink an eye. But most people, they, don't drink nearly that much. But then when water gets taken away, they can't wait to start chugging on the jug. Right. And so if you put a gallon of water down right after the show and you've been dehydrated all day, on top of the fact that you've been manipulating salt and food, now you're going to put all that water weight on. You're going to be bloated for the next 2 days.
Right.
So that's one of the things too, is like almost the hardest part about doing a show is how you react after the show, whether you won or lost. What you put in your body afterwards is very sensitive.
Well, I would say if I was a bodybuilder, I know exactly what would be the most challenging thing for me on bodybuilding day.
What
And
would that be?
that would be waking up and going number 2.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't do that, I'd be like, oh my God, I just screw myself over, and I'd probably psych myself out. But we don't have to get into that. Anyway, so let's get in this topic right here. So you went to a very small D3 school, and I had Fit Finance Bro on this podcast. And so he's in investment banking, but he didn't go to a target school. And so one of his big selling points to a lot of people, and why kids love this guy and trust him, is he walks through the process of how he went from a non-target to investment banking. Your school was a non-target. How did you go from a non-target to one of the biggest global banks in the entire world?
Yeah. No, and Wyatt is a great guy. Fit Finance Bro is a exemplary person for somebody who works like a dog. And I truly mean that. I was just on the phone with him like a week ago, and I have a lot of respect for the guy. And he's younger than me, but I'm very high and bullish on his potential, both in his normal career, but also on his ability to create impact for the younger guys through his social media. Now, when I left college, I needed a vehicle physically to get stressed out. I was a college football player coming from Salve Regina University. I loved the gym. I was a gym rat. I was in there 2-3 hours a day. I was drinking I was, I was going in the gym hungover. So I was drinking on a Saturday night. I was in there Sunday morning, 9 a.m. So my buddies just ripping hammer curls. We just loved it. Right. So then when I got into the corporate world, and I'm at one of the largest global investment banks, and I'm working a job that most people wouldn't expect, was doing 12 hours a day on top of studying for licenses. I had to take 3 different exams within the first 9 months of being in the career. And that was tough. I was doing that on the bus coming back and forth from New York City to New Jersey. I'll tell you what, I didn't get one of those pretty investment banking analyst jobs that was paying over 100,000 a year in 2019, right? I was getting half of that. And so that was barely enough to live on. So I was on a 90-minute commute and I was studying on the bus, and 12-hour days for sure. I was in there by 8 a.m. and I was the last person to leave. It was easily 8 o'clock at night. And then you try to go network too, because on top of that, you're told that's part of the job. You're told that you're trying to meet as many people as possible. Every relationship is crucial. You never know who you're going to meet. And you're also in New York City for the first time during the summer in your first job. So of course you're going to try to take advantage of it, right? So all of that at the same time, it was a hard transition. But just getting the job was painful, absolutely painful. And I think a lot of that has to do with coming from a school nobody's ever heard of and not being able to match your resume to anything that's replicable on an application, right? So trying to find keywords and things that you could put on a resume that can then translate to what you're applying for. And now it's even harder. We have probably one of the hardest job markets in finance. One of the most competitive, especially for where I think the economy is at this point in time. Everybody's trying to get a finance job, right? And if you're coming from a non-target school, you're usually very disadvantaged. If you don't know that you need to apply to the specific jobs that match the criteria on your resume, or you need to create a resume that matches the criteria of the job that you want, right?
Right.
So I figured that out actually in the second semester of my senior year, where I was able to add some significant things in my course curriculum that was able to give me a little bit more esteem and actually paint my resume with prettier rainbow colors.
Yeah.
That I actually not only was well-rounded, was a student athlete, was involved in student government as the vice president. I ran the student athlete advisory committee as the president, and I was doing things actively on campus. I always tried to be the big fish in a small pond, but gearing my actual curriculum towards the finance career was very difficult with what they were offering. And coming from a small school, there's certainly not a feeder program for anything on Wall Street. So finding courses online that I could take that could give me a little extra, I have this accreditation or I took this certification, right? And you see them all the time from Bloomberg, Wall Street Prep, breaking into Wall Street. They're a lot more prevalent now. Back then it was a lot harder to find. So it was explaining who I was through my storytelling and getting in contact with the right people, networking and alumni base and personal network and passion connections, right? People that are interested in the same stuff was very helpful for me. And you have to also look across different banks and then find those mid-tier boutique firms where I think you probably gain the most traction. Because if you can find somebody who has a reason to resonate with you at a smaller mid-tier or small boutique bank or a firm, it doesn't have to be a bank. Everybody looks at these large bulge brackets and thinks that's the mecca. It's not always the best situation for everybody. I just so happen to end up at one of the largest banks because a relationship, and then a relationship, almost tertiary, led me to a conversation on the phone that gave me an interview. Right. And then I went into the interview and I tried to knock it out of the park. But you had to get there through a network, and then you had to be prepped to sit there and take a lot of the hits.
So speaking about networking, I don't know if you've ever read the book The Tipping Point. Have you ever read that book?
I actually haven't, but I'm aware of it.
So they mentioned three main types. It's about social connection and how word spreads. So there's three main types of people, and this is the foundation of how word spreads like wildfire. Number one is a connector. This person is someone who has it's the guy that knows everybody, has all these sorts of ties and like bridges people together. Number two is a salesman. It's the charismatic person. And then number three is a maven who's an expert in their industry and people trust them. So when they talk, people listen. In my eyes, who you are, you're a connector. You have a lot of different types of relationships with a lot of different people, and you can bridge that together. And so that's just my analysis. But for the kid that's listening to this right now, that is in college, who is me a year ago, me 2 years ago, that is like, holy shit, I really want to get into banking, or I really want to get into finance. I could be going to Penn, or I could be going to Webster University, a D3, or a Salve Maria, a very, very small school. What advice would you give that person from a networking perspective to get their foot in the door and get that interview?
There's a couple things. I think, namely, it's about geographic proximity. It's going to be very difficult to reach a market from the other side of the country, right? And whether you are in that demographic or in that geographic location or not, your next step is to find ways to express a well-rounded character, somebody who has multiple interests and the ability to develop relationships through them, right? So whether that's golf, that's jujitsu, chess, music, art, you're able to develop some type of real fondness, skill, some type of appreciation for something where then you can create relationships. Like you can't be a one-trick pony, but you also need to get deep enough in something where you can develop relationships and rapport outside of like the course curriculum and the career path, right? But then you also have to prove interest in the career path, right? It's as simple as taking the SIE exam before you even enter the securities industry. It's a test that you can spend a couple $100 on, not be supported by a firm, and go put on your resume after taking it 60 days after opening the book and show that you truly have conviction on taking that career path. I think a lot of people are very wishy-washy about what their timelines and their long-term career paths should be. I think it's about being deliberate with what your intentions are. Do I want to work in banking? Yes. How do I get there? Okay. Look it up. ChatGPT. How do I get into banking? Here are the steps, right? And basically what I've tried to do through Savage in a Suit is be a mentor to people who are trying to find where it is that they fit best, right? Because you might not be deliberate yet. You might not understand what the different areas there are to pursue. And you might need just somebody to guide you in that direction to help you bridge the gap between who you are and who you want to be and figure out where that rubber meets the road, right?
I gotcha. So Savage in a Suit is you help people that are looking to get into whatever their dream jobs is. Kind of you give them a roadmap, right, to identify what's the most feasible, and then you walk them through step by step how to get there.
Exactly. So basically, through coursework as well as monthly Zoom calls with industry leaders who have been in their shoes, everybody very like-minded, savages within their own respective suit,
Yeah.
telling the younger self how they could get there, clearing up the road debris to make sure that they can understand and see the light of this is where I belong or this is not where I belong, right? Making it very clear for them. I just recently had an accountant who runs his own firm now. He is fully entrepreneurial, but he worked at a big four firm. He was at KPMG,
Hmm.
and he thought that was his dream job. He came from the University of Minnesota, and that was a school that, you know, you had to be a 4.0 student to get into KPMG, and he talked his way into it during a convention, right? And he was developing rapport and relationship, and he ended up at KPMG thinking, wow, this is the dream job, right?
Yeah.
Nope, couldn't wait to get out of there. And so he ends up going to Uber, right? And so he ends up at Uber and he's like, you know, Silicon Valley, tech, this is great. This is exactly what I want to do. Nope, this sucks. It's a lot harder. There's a lot less rules, but there's a lot less instruction and guidance. And I'm working double the hours I was, if I could even imagine it, right? So then he steps into another job in tech. He's at DoorDash and he's like, okay, this could be the one. Nope. This is where he starts his outside business and he sleeps 4 hours a night. And 2 or 3 years later, he is fully on his own, developing his own business, using all the skills that he acquired through the 3 main experiences he had and building his own business where he's got multi-millions in revenue. And he is the leader. He is the business development guy now. He has hired over 30 people to work for him, right? So I think you think and imagine that you have this career path and you think it's this picture of who you're going to become. And it's so much deeper than that. Now you have to be deliberate about picking that career path based off your skill set and what feels right. And this guy had gone to college, left, went home, and went back to college to become an accountant because it was safe. And inevitably, he ended up taking the non-safe route, right? So isn't
Right.
that some self-discovery that maybe some real reflection would have gotten you there? But you have to go through those life experiences and anecdotally create the evidence that you actually have more. There's a limitless potential underneath.
Well, and I think that's a very common story for a lot of because my school, what they do is they'll push you towards investment banking and they'll push you towards consulting because it's the most prestigious job and it makes the business school look good. It's also the highest paying job, so it makes them also look good. So you're in an environment where you're pushed this way. And I think most of the time kids find out that it's probably not the environment for them and they hate it. But you, on the other hand, you get into this huge global bank right out of college, out of a school where you shouldn't have got this job and you're still working there. So like can you describe what is it that you're actually doing and what's kept you with the same company on a mission throughout the past years?
Sure. So we're in PWM, and that's a niche within finance that kind of has an entrepreneurial spirit.
Mm,
And you have the tools at your disposal, the firm that you're working for. Some people are at large bulge bracket wirehouses, and some people have more of a setup like an RIA, a little bit more open architecture, make their own rules, so to speak, right, within the confines of how the industry works. But I ended up at my firm on the right team. Basically, I had this hungry, tenacious New Jersey pistol, 37 years old, fastest growing guy at the firm. And I sat in an interview with him 4 separate times.
yeah.
And the first time I sat across from him, he was like, why should I hire you? I don't recognize a damn thing on your resume. And I explained to him that although I didn't go to the University of Maryland and was the valedictorian like he was, and this is a guy who could also balance it because he was hungover on a Friday morning, but he was the first guy in class and he was sitting in the front.
Yeah.
I basically said, listen, I spent 4 years at a 4-year college in a school you've never heard of, and I'm sitting across from you knowing that I played football for one of the hardest guys to play for, who tore me apart every chance he got. And on top of that, I involved myself in student government, student athlete advisory committee, different clubs, explored how I could develop myself so that I could sit here and tell you that I will do whatever it takes. Whatever you tell me to do, I'll lick the bottom of your shoe. I don't care. I'm here to win. And I ended up winning the job over people who've been in the industry half a decade, a full decade. And he said, all right, we're going to hire you. And if you get licensed and you do what we need you to do, you stay on the team. And so I got hired onto the team. And on top of that, we ended up merging our team and we added another guy who used to run a $3.5 billion family office in the 90s. And he ran a fund for George Soros back in the day. And he ran the Prudential Equity Derivatives desk for 7 years. And this was a guy who also has his JD and CPA. He was a tax attorney.
Okay.
So, guy in his early 60s who's crushed it throughout every leg of his career is now my mentor. So I then spend the next 6 years with a guy who's tenacious, who's a pistol, who's the fastest growing guy at the firm, alongside a guy who's had a lot of experience, some of the most sophisticated experience, some of the most globally renowned experience. And I get to learn from both of them. And so I took that opportunity, and every chance my parents got to tell me that if it's too much or they're taking advantage of you and you want to go do something in fitness because you love to work out, you want to be a personal trainer, you got no overhead. Just live with your parents.
Yeah.
Your car's paid off. You're fine. You've done everything you need to do. You took a hack at it. Go do something you love. And I said, you know what? I think there's a way for me to get really good at this with the guys who are really good at this and build something out of my career. And now I'm sitting in a seat where I'm kind of groomed to grow with the business and have my own piece of it. And I think that's phenomenal because I've learned to love the business because it's a people business and it's intriguing. There's things changing all the time. I have ADHD. If things aren't changing all the time, I'm freaking out. I need noises. I need white noise to go to sleep. I go to sleep with the TV on most nights unless my girlfriend's here because she hates that and she needs peace and quiet. But my beat is I need changing environment. And on top of that, I try to balance the whole fitness thing and the social media thing because I think they're conduits to the things I do. I think they are conducive to who I am as a person. They allow me to be stimulated, refreshed. They allow me to get fresher breath air outside of the office, and they allow me to be my whole version of myself. So I think, go ahead.
Do you think your personal brand helps you out with work?
1000%. It's easily the biggest business generator I've ever found in the 6 years that I've been working there. It has stimulated the most business development as I've continued to be more authentic with myself and grow a following and continue to build a community around myself. I've had intros to different people. I just got invited to go to a major show, the Chainsmokers, because of a DJ, because I'm making content with his sounds. And then I meet people all the time. I was in F1 Miami. I went there for work and pleasure. I was doing a bit of both. I'm at the F1 Cadillac launch party. Two kids come up to me that are both New York City finance guys. They want to take a picture. The mom comes up. She's super wealthy, and she wants me to help her sell her boat. Her son and his friend are taking pictures with you. Are you guys buddies? They said, no. He's the guy from New York City. He's got the energy drink. He's super energetic. He works in finance. They tell my story for me. That's the key.
So how does a normal person leverage let's just walk through a little case study right now. So what I'm going to be doing, and you may not have to answer this, but I'm just seeking a little bit of advice. So when I'm moving to New York in the fall, what I'm doing is essentially I'm doing recruiting. I'm in the people business, but it's not recruiting and placing people in jobs. I'm recruiting for private equity companies. And so there's a private equity company that's looking to invest in an industry. I have to go out and source an expert in that industry to then connect the two. I make a commission off of that call, what they charge for. So if you're sitting here right now and you're me, moving to New York City, personal brand, lifestyle content, has a podcast, how would you go about leveraging that personal brand to make work more fruitful?
In my opinion, your personal brand is one of the best hooks because you're going to attract people who want to watch your content, who want to understand the different people you have on, right? And then you're going to get intros through everybody you have on the podcast,
Yeah.
as well as everybody who watches it and interacts with you, right? And you're just going to meet more interesting, unique people. Some of them might be in private equity now. Some people might want to get into private equity, but they have an industry special expertise that you can actually leverage to say, hey, I have this role over here in this same industry that you seem to be a subject matter expert in. Have you ever thought about this? Right. And they might actually have a background in something that aligns with private equity and
Yeah.
say, okay, let's have a conversation, figure out who you know, figure out what you've done, and see if there's a match, right? You're matchmaking constantly. So the more brand awareness that you have and the better you're able to Joe Rogan yourself, where you are one of the most well-spoken and down to earth and well versed in so many different areas type of person,
Yeah.
you can leverage all of that and the network to develop an audience, but also contacts and a pipeline.
So it seems like any single person, they should be wanting to make a personal brand. Yet that's not always the case. And I think especially in the finance industry, it's not the case because a lot of people fear the pushback that they're going to get. Like it's not typical. You don't see that a bunch. And I just know from my friends who are going into finance, like sometimes they're the ones that give me the most shit. Like sometimes it's out of love, but that just happens. And so I'm trying to think like you coming into this because I believe you started content in college. Did you ever get pushback at the start?
All the time.
You did.
All the time. Friends, non-friends, people who talk behind my back. At the end of the day, what I was doing was living who I was supposed to be. I was living the life of the person I was supposed to be. And people aren't cool when you're contrarian. People are not cool with somebody who goes against the social norm. And one of the biggest things I think people really identify with is reputational risk, because for your whole life, you're trying to avoid being an outcast. But what you really realize is that reputational risk is just the risk of not having a good reputation for being a good person and being authentically yourself. Because most of the criticism comes from that person's a bad guy,
Yeah.
or that person did something wrong, or that person says they are this and they're not. Right. So as long as you're living authentically who you are, there's going to be people who don't like you regardless. That's life. But if people are like, you know what, there's something about that guy that I really like, and he doesn't care that other people don't like him and he's just doing his thing, then I think that's probably one of the biggest reputational leverage points that you have, right?
Right.
Because if everybody leaves an interaction with you feeling good about you, how you made them feel about them,
Yeah.
then you have leverage, right?
Well,
The
well, what I'm saying is this though, like you and Fit Finance, bro, are shaping an industry. You guys, I don't think you understand what you guys are doing. This type of stuff does not happen within finance. Like the typical finance person, right? It's probably very work hard, play hard, but in my opinion, a lot of times it's a mask. It's like, yeah, like I'm finance, like I'm the cool guy, like, oh, posting content's cringe, like that's BS. Like you don't realize that you are shaping an industry. And so specifically with the finance side of things, was there ever a time where there was fear in the back of your head that maybe colleagues or associates are looking at you and saying, what is this guy doing? Did you ever think it was going to hurt you? Did you ever get pushback in that sort of sense?
Anthony, I almost lost my job.
You did.
I was whistleblowed. I've had people try to hurt me. I've had people try to get me fired from my job.
Wow.
People take a personal offense to you being yourself. And so I've had compliance come to me and say, hey, did you say this on a podcast? Hey, did you solicit financial advice when you shouldn't have? Hey, what did you post? Can you send that to us in an email? You
Interesting.
shouldn't be filming in the office. Okay. I apologize if it looked like I was filming in the office. I wasn't. No,
Mm,
you can watch the podcast. I did not say that. You're going to constantly have to defend yourself when you are out in the open. But that's the vulnerability that you take when you put yourself out online. Now, that's obviously a disadvantage. It is a vulnerability. But the advantage is that you gain so much respect from people that you are out in the open and you're not afraid to take shots. And so now I have friends in compliance who will
mm,
keep an eye out for me. So when people come their way and say, hey, he did this or that, I'm sure I am not hearing about it in most cases. And in the 10% of times that I am, they're going
Yeah.
to just come ask me a couple questions and they're going to review it and they're going to do their due diligence and they're going to find that I, again, didn't do anything wrong and I'm just doing my thing and I've disclosed everything to the firm. So at the end of the day, it's just about me doing everything authentically and trying to do it by the book the best I can. People make mistakes, but people are going to try and hurt you if you're doing something different than they are.
What motivates you?
What motivates me is my parents,
Okay.
because my parents have always been the biggest supporters of the things that I do, regardless of how I feel about them. And when I brought my mom the Savage in the Suit idea, she finally said, Zan, that's it. You finally did it. Like that is it. Right. And so I get excited about that because now I wind in my sails. Right.
Yeah.
Because like that's all that matters. Right. All of us grow up looking up at our parents and just wanting to uh, impress them, make them proud. Look at this trick. How many kids say, look at this trick? This is my trick. I'm trying my best to make an impact on other people. My mom has always known me to be somebody who likes to serve, who wants to rescue, wants to create and make friendships. My dad's favorite thing I said when I came to college was, I'm just here to make friends.
Mm.
I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't know I wanted to be in finance until about 3 semesters in. I figured it out a little later. And all the while, I was doing exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm building relationships, trying to create utility out of myself, trying to deliver value to people, create an impact. I just want to make people's lives better just by being there. If I can service somebody by being a good friend, if I can service somebody through a financial means, if I could service somebody through giving them confidence in their body, confidence in their mind, confidence in their life that they're doing the right thing, or maybe that they need to change paths and they should just jump, that's what I'm here for. So I'm here to serve my parents and show them that they did a good job. And I'm here to serve people around me to give them the life that they deserve, that they didn't even know they deserve.
One of the biggest things that I do this every single New Year's, but I try to do it throughout the year is I'm very big into self-reflection. And there's been certain things that have happened throughout my life where I repeat the same mistake over and over and over again, and I never quite learned from it. But I started learning a lot more the more reflecting I did. And even in the position you're at right now, like it seems like you've got you may disagree with me because like we all know we don't have stuff figured out, but it seems like you've got a lot of stuff figured out and your future looks very bright. But with that being said, like in that end goal where you want, and I've heard you mention it before, you want to be one of the biggest advisors at whatever firm you're at. What does that next step look like? What is the one skill right now that you're working to develop to get to that point?
I think there's one skill. I think it's a constant daily deposit into a lot of different buckets. So I
Mm,
think you're trying to build acumen, trying to build experience, right? Because experience grows the life lessons, grows the knowledge base. I think for me, what I'm trying to do is create a brand of somebody who's constantly trying to progress, right? The daily deposit, embrace the chase. So I don't think it's one skill. I think it's a rotational focus of skills where for one chapter of my life, I am focused on building this one skill through tasks that help me to harness that skill. It's skill aggregation. It's what everybody in their, early 20s, late 20s, everybody who is trying to develop their career, they
yeah.
need to think about over income rather than think about, okay, how much am I making straight out of college? Right. Because a lot of people focus on that first year, like salary.
Yeah.
What skills am I going to aggregate and pick up along the way over the next 3 to 5 years? And so like, that's how I've kind of like looked at my career is, okay, can you trade derivatives? Now I can. All right. Can you assess loan to value and create a valuation? Can you do financings? Do you understand the terms? Can you create a plan? How do you deliver on that plan? Things change. How do you manipulate the plan to get a successful outcome? Right. So I think all of those things I've spent significant amount of time trying to grow a knowledge base and then just throwing a daily deposit in every day to embrace the chase of being better at each of them. I think it's hard to be a one trick pony as well as it's hard to be a jack of all trades. But I think one of the things you need to think about is where do I fit the world best? And for me, like I service a lot of utility in a lot of different areas, but I'm finding my way in the business that I'm doing right now. And I think that's phenomenal. And I think that's exciting for a young guy in his 20s to develop a business and a career so early with so much clarity.
I've got a tough question on the topic of skills. So, what do you think's more important? Technical skills or people skills?
So it's definitely people skills because technical skills are so teachable. And you
You
may think that
you don't think you can teach people skills?
I think people skills can be taught, but I think the feeling that you give people is typically innate. I think your personality
Uh,
is hard to manipulate. I think some people are super brash, some people are super warm, some people are funny, right? They're the funny guy in the room and it comes to them easily. What's really much easier to teach somebody is how to do a DCF.
right. Well,
And
what do you think's your number one people skill?
I think my number one people skill is making them feel seen. And that's what I've been told is
Okay.
that I really try my absolute best to get a story and get some information out of the person that I'm talking to and try to understand them on a deeper level rather than talking about myself. Sure, I'll tell you my story and I'll add my anecdotes and my tidbits, my 2 cents, whatever they're worth. But I really want to learn from you. I'd rather learn from you because I think it's more self-serving to me if I get you to speak and tell me something I didn't know about you or something about something I don't really know about in general. And I think what I try to do is make everybody that I'm with feel important, like they're part of my team.
Hmm.
And I think that's my true skill is generating a team of people, of good role players in whatever role they service best and make everybody win together. So I think I'm a team guy. I like to center myself around a winner's circle. And I constantly think I will win more as long as the winner's circle is around me. So that's, I think, my people skill. And I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
my mentor, who is easily the most technically proficient and one of the smartest people I've ever met, and certainly the most endowed with information, he will attest that people skills and soft skills are
Yeah.
way more important than the technical and the hard skills.
Yeah. I've got to agree, and I'll give you one one example of why I agree. So, I just watched a show on Netflix. It's called Secret Millionaire. So essentially, what it is it fantastic show, by the way. If you don't want to binge, don't watch this show. But what it is they put like, let's say 10 people in this little resort, and every single day they will each person has a box, and the host of the show will put $1 million in one of the contestants box. If you get that $1 million, your sole goal is to not let a single person know you have that million, because at the end of the day they're going to vote on who has it. If you get voted, you're kicked out of the show and they move it to another person's box. So it's a game of lying, manipulation, and deceit. But the person that ended up winning the show was just the sweetest girl in the world. You'd think she's the most naive. You'd think she has no idea what's going on. She was everybody's friend, but she literally just slid under the radar until she got to the end. I think there are 5 people left. She got the $1 million, and then boom, she won. But she was brought along because every single person, they liked her so much, and they just kept bringing her. And there were people saying, "I'm gonna bring you to the end with me." So 100% is people, and I agree. I'm a student of human nature. Like that stuff, that's what really makes me tick. I love reading books on that stuff. But anyway, so I know we're getting towards the end, but there's two more things I kind of really want to touch on. Um, Number one, you had some issues with TRT, and some acne and difficult stuff like this. And it sounds like that it changed a lot for you. I'm just curious if you want to break that down. What happened?
Happy to. I feel like this is one of the stories of my life that because of distance and yeah, not being part of my recency bias, people forget that I came back from probably one of the worst cystic acne situations that anybody's ever seen. Um, Basically, when I was in college, obviously I was overweight and trying to lose weight and be lean for spring break and things like that. And so I was in this perpetual cycle of dieting and over dieting myself and doing too much cardio and not sleeping enough, but also drinking with my friends and trying to counteract all of that. And so by the time I was out of college, I was in an even worse cycle of sleeping less because of the job and continuing to keep up my routine and not taking rest days and dieting really hard on low fat and low carb. And I screwed my hormones up. And by the time I had been done with about 20 weeks of dieting and started binge eating, my body started inflating and getting bloated and putting on body fat, and it was uncomfortable. So then I started to try and even that out. And all the while, my body wasn't changing. And then I couldn't sleep. I was also very low sex drive. And at 23 years old, that's alarming. And so all of these things going on at once, I said, something's really not right for a very healthy guy who tries really hard to eat well and to be so young and feel so low energy all the time, but not be able to sleep. Something's wrong. So I went to a doctor, went to my normal physician, and I asked him to run my lab work. And he told me that he thought it was silly that I was running my lab work, but he would do it. And he ran my total and my free testosterone, not a full metabolic panel, and told me the only two things I needed to hear to say I need to go to endocrinologist. I had low testosterone. I had a total test of 63 nanograms per deciliter and free testosterone of 8.3 picograms per deciliter, which is effectively about a seventh of what it should have been.
Wow.
Yeah. And so at the low level, I was a seventh of what my normal testosterone level should have been naturally. And so I went to an endocrinologist, and we were all at about the same rate at this point at which I was assessing my blood work again. And I ended up on TRT after about 3 months of going through that, because after changing my diet, after taking sleep medications and trying to force myself into a situation of unwinding fatigue, unwinding hormone damage, and adding calories back into my diet and dropping a lot of my training principles that were like rooted in 6 days a week and going hard, David Goggins style, right? Like constantly working out. I couldn't get my testosterone levels to come back. And you either had to take the gel and put the gel on your skin, or you had to take the pin, you had the needle. And so I ended up going with the needle because the gel seemed silly, because it was only going to be so efficaciously dosed. It wasn't going to really make a big difference. Every doctor is kind of against it as a medication. So I ended up on TRT. Now, the TRT is not what hurt my skin. What hurt my skin was going on my first testosterone cycle after going on TRT 6 months later, thinking, okay, if I want to compete in bodybuilding, all these guys are doing cycles, but I can't compete naturally anyway now either. So I might as well try my first cycle. So I did. I took it in my own hands to try that. And for 16 weeks, I was on this cycle before my skin started to blow up into awful cystic acne. I hope you could show pictures, because I'll send them to you. Viewer discretion advised. It was probably one of the worst things I've ever experienced. I couldn't shower without immense pain. There was no water contact that could hit my skin, or I was losing it. I was losing scabs. I was popping. I was struggling. It was nerves that were going into my skin. I couldn't sleep properly. I was getting stuck to my sheets or the shirt that I wore to bed. It was painful. So I ended up on Accutane. And there were some videos that were made about me that I didn't feel so nice about after the whole experience. And big names like Greg Doucette or Derek from More Plates, More Dates made review videos on the video I ultimately made after going through Accutane for 5 months. And so when I went through Accutane and posted the video, I caught a lot of flack for what I did. And maybe deservedly so, taking your first cycle and something that everybody, I think, in normalized modern culture would say is normal. Most people are taking cycles or on gear, and they're not telling people about it. I did that, and I got burnt by it. And it was because the sebaceous gland gets overwhelmed with sebum oil. And if you're overproducing hormones and your hormones are all out of whack and nobody's watching it, there's no doctor monitoring this, you're going to have a real bad time. And so I had a bad time, and I wanted to tell my story. And then I caught flack for telling my story. And that was the first time I really felt a lot of social media pressure, where a lot of people who didn't know me at all had an opinion about me, which created a callus. Because then I became super well prepared for how the life is going to try to poke at you. People are going to try and take shots at you. And so I basically lived with that for about a year before I really got used to it. And so I spent the next couple of years really trying to fix my skin. The Accutane obviously helped. And then there's a bit of like a 6 to 9 month period at which your collagen's rebuilding after Accutane. But I basically went from people telling me I would never step on a bodybuilding stage because my skin was so messed up, to stepping on a bodybuilding stage and looking really good, and then putting on 25 pounds of muscle thereafter and being able to win my show 2 years later. And so what I proved is that, just because you make a mistake and I tried to warn as many people as I could from making the same mistake. There's a way to go about it to fix your skin and to bodybuild and to optimize your hormones, where you can use a medical clinic that is properly prescribing what your body needs at the time it needs it based off what your blood work is telling you. And I think that's the safe route that most people need to start looking into more, rather than trying to find the buddy at the gym who's got a source. And so I've really tried to continue to show that in my content, and continue to speak that in my messaging, is that it's all about managing and optimizing your blood work and being as healthy as possible. And everybody can try to do what they want to do to optimize. I'm not going to tell anybody how to live their life or what medications to take, but I am going to say go get a doctor and have them run you through it, because the guidance is super helpful. But everybody should try to look the way they want to do, the way they want to look, and everybody should try to feel the way they want to feel to optimize performance. And I think that's everybody's agency and autonomy in life to make that decision. And I
Yeah.
just tried to show my story to be a guiding light to what the repercussions of that could be, but also what the comeback story of somebody who had to go through it could actually achieve.
I mean, when you say that you couldn't sleep and you couldn't shower, I assume that weightlifting probably took a hit. Like, if you can't have water on it, you definitely can't have a barbell on your back or just like random stuff like that. But what that makes me think is like it's got to bring you in a state of gratitude. Like being, and first of all, your skin looks great today, but being in a state of gratitude and just saying, holy cow, like, man, that's what it was. And boom, it can all be taken away from you like that. So I think it's pretty inspiring. But the last
I
question
appreciate it.
I have before we wrap this up is, I think you're known for your energy. I'd really say that. And so a lot of people that don't have that type of energy, or maybe you're in a down slump right now, that, wake up every morning and be like, why am I even waking up? Like, what am I working towards? I have no purpose. Why should I be happy right now? Like, what is your advice to that person?
My advice to somebody who's in a slump is to understand that you have to create challenge in your life to actually appreciate when things are going really well. And so when life gives you those challenges to deal with and to handle, they're really just handing you the tools to be able to be prepared to win the next day. And so I'm always thinking about, how am I going to take this bad situation and learn from it so that I can then be better prepared to win the next time the challenge arises, and then be grateful that I'm strong enough to get past that. I'm smart enough to get past that, right? And so I think everybody has bad things happen. I got hit by an 18 wheeler the other day. I sat there in my car and I was astonished. But I have a little baby Jesus sitting on my dash, and I picked him up, and I actually ended up making a video because I wanted to show people, how you react to bad situations. There's nothing you can do about that. I'm going to sit there and be very grateful that I didn't get hurt and nothing bad happened. The driver didn't get hurt. He got out and came over to my passenger side window and apologized. And I sat there and I was able to get out of my car at some point, once we were able to figure out how I was going to get out of my car, and to step away from the situation. And then I took a work call on my walk home, because I was not far from home. Because you walk away from every situation and it's a fleeting moment. And if you don't take advantage of the good from it and take advantage of the bad from it to learn something, and then move on with your life and try to achieve the next thing, then you're getting stuck in the past and you're continuing to get buried. And the last thing I'm going to do is get buried by either complacency, poor habits, or a bad thing happening to me, because I'm always going to try and convert that into energy, convert that into my next bit of momentum. And I'm all about momentum in life. And you self-build momentum. There's not going to be a day in your life where you don't have something bad happen to you or something that tries to derail you. It's about being rubber, being really good to bounce back. And if you can't do that, well, then you're not meant for the next one. And you got to go through it a little bit harder so that you can bounce back. So that's always been my motto, is treat life like you're the underdog. And this was supposed to happen to you. And if it didn't, you wouldn't get the chance to win, because winning doesn't feel that good if it wasn't that hard.
Well said. That is a great way to end this podcast. Zan, where can everybody find you?
Zan Carver everywhere except for LinkedIn, Alexander Carver. And then you can figure out where I work, what I do on a normal day to day from the time the market opens to the time the market closes. But Zan Carver on every platform, and I'm posting incessantly. I'm basically on everybody's feed, and I love it because it gives me more opportunity to interact with more people and make a better impact. So if you want to find me, you know where to find me.
That's everybody's CTA, is find out what he does on LinkedIn. But with that being said, the Gross Potential community, thanks you so much. Bro, you dropped a lot of knowledge. I had an absolute pleasure. And I know that every single person listening to this is going to have the same pleasure I did. So, with that being said, take care, everybody. Bye bye. Bye bye. Zan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony.